I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 97, Forgiveness. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed. Because I've been where you are, and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Hello, my ladies. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys had a great week. I had an awesome week. I want to tell you about it. So Rob and I took a little trip. We did 2 days. I had a babysitter come and stay with my kids for 2.5 days. And we went to Asheville, North Carolina. We live outside of Raleigh, so it's about 4 hours away. And we went to the Biltmore. If you guys don't know what the Biltmore is, go Google it because it is gorgeous. It's basically a castle, which we don't have a lot of in America. And it was awesome. I'm a huge history nerd and I love this kind of stuff. So we went on Thursday. On Thursday night, we went, we were on our way there. My husband's like, what do you want to do when we get there? And I said, I really just want to take a nap, which is what I did. So we got to Asheville. We checked into our hotel. We actually stayed at a hotel on the Biltmore property. It was beautiful and took a nap. And then we got up and went to downtown Asheville to go to dinner. And it was super fun just to walk around and kind of feel the city. We went to a chocolate lounge or something like that, which was just this chocolate factory place, which was amazing. And then we went out to dinner and it was St. Patrick's Day, which was fun to hear. There were musicians on the streets all playing Irish music, which was fun. If you guys follow me on Instagram at Jolene Wynn Coaching, you'll know that I posted some clips of some musicians and stuff, which was fun. And then the next day we went to the actual Biltmore estate and we did a tour. And we not only did the main tour, but then we got extra tickets and we did the backstairs tour, which is like the servant's wing tour. And it was so cool. And if you guys go, you have to pay to do the servant's tour as well, because it's like a whole nother section area of the house that you just wouldn't get to see. And it's so cool. And then there's, 8,000 acres and they have gardens and things, but it started to rain immensely. So we didn't get to do the gardens, but it was so fun and it was so great. And it was so nice to just have us. And one thing that I did that I was really proud of myself over these days was I just let everything go. Now, I'm very good at doing that in regards to like my life and my kids. I don't worry about my kids when I'm gone. And they were great and the babysitter did a great job. But what I mean is I let my brain just have a couple of days off. So even though I had planned, I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to get so much work done. I have so many things on my mind that I want to create for y'all. And I was like, I'm going to knock this out and I'm going to do all of it. I didn't do any of it. I let my brain have 2 days off. I didn't think about my business and it was so nice. So I want to recommend y'all, if you guys do not do trips with your spouse, you should do it. Just the two of you and just enjoy it. Just have time where there's and go away, right? There's something amazing about getting out of the routine of like chores and running kids everywhere that just lets you just be the two of you. And it's so nice. So if you haven't done that yet, go do it. That was my weekend and it was so fun. We came back on Saturday, relieved the babysitter and just had us and our kids. And then today we had church and it was just so nice. It's been so amazing. And here's what I thought of today. I have so much to tell you guys and it reminded me of the calendar. Okay, let me tell you about the calendar. Okay, so when I was growing up, we had family night once a week and we would do it on Sunday nights. And part of family night is my mom would get out her desk calendar and we would do the calendar and everyone would say where they had to be and what time and all the things so that my mom and my dad could figure out who was taking what car and who had to pick up what person and who had a track meet and who had a swim meet and a lacrosse game. I'm the youngest of 7, so we had a lot of people with a lot of activities and a lot of schedules. And so we would always do the calendar once a week. And when I was thinking this today, when I was thinking about all the things I wanted to tell you about, it reminded me of doing the calendar with my mom because it always took the longest and it was always so fun. We'd always get back off track. And anyway, so I am going to do the calendar with you guys so that you guys can keep a few things in your mind. Okay. Number one, Rob and I are doing a free webinar this Thursday. So March 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are doing a free webinar for men called How to Overcome a Pornography Addiction. So if you are thinking of joining the men's group, if you have a spouse that is thinking of joining the men's group, please come to this webinar. You can sign up on my website, jolenewind.com. There's a tab called Men's Group, and that is where all the information is for that webinar. And you can sign up. It's free, and we are going to be talking about how, our approach rather for the men's group that is starting on April 14th. Okay, so come to the webinar. It's going to give all of the information of how we're going to approach this differently from any other program, how we're going to teach the men how to uproot the source of their addiction and to eliminate it once and for all. And that men's group is going to start on April 14th. Again, there's only 8 spots in this group. We're only taking 8 men. And so if your spouse wants to join that group, all you have to do is head to my website, jolenewind.com, sign up for a free consultation call with me. Rob or myself will get on the phone with you, talk all the way through it, make sure it's a good fit for you, and get you signed up. Okay, that men's group again starts on April 14th. And again, there's only 8 men in it. It'll run for 4 months. And I can't wait to see all the men that come in it. We have a couple of spots already taken, so I think we have 5 left. So if you've been thinking about it, if you are ready to get through this thing and put it behind you once and for all, then let's go. Okay, sign up for a free consultation call and we'll do it. And if you're a little bit on the fence, if you want to know more, come to the webinar. Okay. The other thing I wanted to tell you, ladies, is that on March 31st, or on April 1st, rather, my prices are going up. Okay, for my lifetime access coaching program. So the introductory price that I've been going with, that I've been having for the last couple of months, that ends on March 31st. So if you guys want to get in, there is no better time. It is the cheapest it's ever going to be. So if that is where you guys are getting stuck, this is the time. I'm so excited to have all of you all come join. So let's go. Okay, April 1st, my prices are going up. So if you want to get in before then, you can join right away on my website. You just go to jolenewind.com, you go to the Work With Me tab, and it will lead you through the links so that you can sign up right away. Or you can schedule a free consultation call with me. There's a bar at the top that says schedule a free consultation call. I'll get on the phone with you. We'll talk all about it and make sure that you are ready to go. Okay? The other thing, I told you guys, this is the calendar. On this Thursday, the same day as the webinar, I am teaching my new class, which I haven't talked a lot about, but every month this year, I am teaching a new class inside my coaching program. Okay. And this year, and again, it's all about intentionality, being intentional in our life. And my clients voted and they wanted one on intentional prayer. And I'm so excited for this. I've been mentally preparing for this. And that is this Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to come to that call, go ahead and just join my coaching program before then, and you'll be able to join that call or see the recording in the content online. Okay, you'll get access to the recording once you join. But if you want to, I would really encourage you to come live so that you can get your questions asked and get some coaching. And I'm just super excited about this. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I have thought a lot about this topic, and I'm so excited to bring everything that I've learned to y'all and to share it. So just come join us, jolenewind.com. You can sign up today for lifetime access, and I'm going to help you learn how to finally let go of all the things that you're holding on to, all of the pain, and to move forward once and for all. Okay? I think that was all of my items on my calendar. So if you guys are ready, let's dive into today. It's actually something I am super excited to talk to y'all about. I have talked about forgiveness a little bit on the podcast before, but I teach the 16, 17, 18-year-olds in church, and we were learning about Joseph. Do you guys know the story of Joseph? Of being sold into slavery by his brothers, and he works in Potiphar's household, and then he interprets Pharaoh's dreams, and then he leads the Israelites through 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And he meets his brothers again as they come to Egypt asking for food because they're starving. And they don't recognize Joseph, and they assume he's been dead for a long time. But he obviously recognizes them, and he forgives them, and they reunite, and it's this beautiful thing. So this was the lesson, and it was all about forgiveness. And as I was preparing it for my class, I realized that I wanted to do it more for y'all as well. And I have some questions that I'm going to go through here that I am excited to gift to you all and to share my thoughts with you, okay? Now, I have talked about this a little bit before. There's a bonus episode pretty early on in the podcast. If you go back and look through the podcast history, it's called My Journey of Forgiveness. And it's a bonus episode, but it's really more about my story. And I want to teach you guys how. Okay, very practical. How does one actually forgive? So let's talk about it. So first I want to ask, what do you guys think forgiveness actually is? Like in your brains, just think about it without Googling it. What do you think forgiveness is? I asked my class this today, and they came up with some great answers. One of them said acceptance and acknowledgement. One of them said it's when you're able to let go of some hate, when you are able to look back at a memory without all of the hatred and the anger that you used to have. And then another one of my kids in my class said when you are no longer like bitter, right? And I thought those were so good and so profound, such smart teenagers I have. And that is really part of it, right? Forgiveness is letting go. Forgiveness is not for, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's not for the other person. It's actually for yourself. Forgiveness is a letting go of the internal emotions that you feel, and it can be a process, but it actually is more, it's an internal process, I guess you should say. Okay. Now, when you think about forgiveness, one of the things that I thought of was, okay, well, what's the opposite of forgiveness? Okay. Like if I want to know what forgiveness is, what is the opposite? And the opposite is punishment. The opposite is resentment. The opposite of forgiveness is bitterness. And I loved that. I thought that was so profound because it is all internal. You guys, all of those are emotions, right? Bitterness, resentment, anger. Those are all emotions that you feel. And that's the opposite of forgiveness. So if you want to forgive, it requires letting go of those emotions, right? So what does that look like? Okay, again, practically speaking, how does one do that? That's my brain. My brain says, when I'm in church and they say, yeah, you need to, turn a new leaf and turn your heart to God. And I'm like, yeah, but how does one do that? Right? And that is what I thought of when I was thinking about forgiveness. It's like, okay, great. So the opposite of forgiveness is having bitterness and resentment. And in order to forgive, it means letting those go. How do you do that? You process your emotions. And again, I know that that's kind of vague because that is not a term that one hears outside of life coaching. What that means is to allow and to feel all of the hurt. It means to allow and to feel all of the pain. It means to stop resisting it. It means to stop allowing it to live and harbor inside of yourself. Does that make sense? When we are not forgiving someone, it's usually because we want to feel the pain. And again, I know that sounds crazy, but it's because we want the reminder that someone did something wrong to us. And I'm going to get more into that in a minute. But the way that we forgive is we allow ourselves to acknowledge and accept the way that we feel. We allow ourselves to feel it. We learn how to feel that feeling, to walk through it, and then to let it go. Okay? Now let's look at why we don't. I think this is one of the biggest ones that I see in my clients a lot. One of the reasons that we don't often want to forgive our husband for his pornography addiction, for example, again, like I said earlier, is because it feels kind of good to stay hurt. I talk about this in my previous podcast where I was talking about my journey of forgiveness. I realized that part of me wanted to hold on to that hurt because I was afraid of what it would mean if I let it go. I was afraid that if I let it go, then it would mean that it wasn't that big of a problem in the first place. I was afraid that it would mean that I was just being dramatic and that I was overreacting, right? We have all of these fears about what it would mean to let something go. And I want to offer that those are just what we're making it mean, not what it actually is. I just want to walk you through a coaching part of one of my clients. I was coaching my client and she said that she's holding a grudge. She's like, I want to forgive him, but I'm really holding a grudge. And as we narrowed it down, we got to that she wants to hold this grudge. She wants to deny forgiveness. That's what holding a grudge is, ladies. It's denying forgiveness. She wants to deny forgiveness because she wants him to feel as hurt as she was. Okay? First of all, this is a lie. He can never feel as hurt as you because he's not you. He's never going to know exactly how you feel. Even if you hold a grudge for eternity, he's never going to know exactly how you feel because he's not you and he's not experiencing your emotions. You experience your emotions. Okay? But she's thought that holding that grudge and the results of holding that grudge, kind of pulling away from him and being bitter and angry and upset and not speaking to him would hurt him, and she wants him to hurt as much as she hurts. Why? So that he can relate to her hurt. Okay? And her thought was, which she didn't realize at the time, was that she wanted to do that so that maybe he could see that all the pain that he caused her. Does this sound familiar? I have had so many clients, this is so common. We think that if they hurt enough, then they'll see. If we hurt enough if we hurt enough and they hurt enough, then they'll see how much they hurt us. And then, here's what she really wants, maybe it will be enough for him to change. Do you guys see this? So often our brain thinks that if we harbor a grudge, if we don't forgive, then somehow he will change because of it. But if you guys remember what the definition of forgiveness is and what the opposite of forgiveness is, right? Holding a grudge, the opposite of forgiveness is bitterness and resentment and anger. And all those are emotions that we feel. All you're doing when you deny forgiveness is hurting yourself. You're keeping yourself full of negative emotion, full of bitterness and resentment and anger and pain that you're not willing to let go because your brain thinks that maybe if you hold on to it, he will change his behavior. It's never going to happen. Do you want to know why? Because no matter how much anger and bitterness you have inside you, you cannot control his emotion. You can't control his actions. You can't control his emotion either. But you also can't change his behavior. You are not in charge of his behavior, ladies. He is in charge of his behavior. He makes his own choices. The only person that you are hurting by not forgiving, by holding a grudge, the only person you're hurting is yourself emotionally. There may be some consequences to your actions. Like if you're being bitter and you're secluding yourself, then it's probably going to have some consequences in your relationship. But the person that you're hurting emotionally is you. Ladies, do you see this? So why don't we do it? Because it feels a little bit good. I asked my class this today. I said, why don't we? If it really isn't doing anything except keeping negativity inside of us, why don't we forgive? And they all said the same thing. They were like, it feels kind of nice. And it does. Our pride gets a little bit of a hit, especially when we have been wronged, right? It feels pretty good to say, he did this terrible thing to me and it's not my fault. I've talked about this before. Pride is something that is going to kind of eat you away from the inside out, okay? Pride prevents us from letting things go because our brain thinks it's important for it to remember. Here's another lie, is our brain thinks that if we forgive, if we let it go, then nothing is going to prevent it from happening again. You guys ever thought this? I totally did. Tons of my clients do. Here's what I want to tell you. You can't prevent it from happening again anyway. Whether you forgive or not is irrelevant. It's unrelated to whether or not it happens again. Why? Because he's in charge of whether or not he watches porn again, not you. Okay? Again, the only person that you're keeping hurt is yourself. You're not preventing him from making a bad choice by keeping yourself hurt. All it does is keep you hurt. That's why we don't do it, because it feels almost a little bit good for just a minute. It's kind of like when maybe that's a bad example. I was going to say, it's kind of like when you eat the thing that you said you weren't going to eat. It feels good for a minute. It really does. It feels really good to eat the thing. But then there's consequences that you don't want to have to deal with, right? That's kind of what it's like. When you don't forgive, when you have that little bit of hit of pride, it's kind of a false elevation. It's a false positive emotion. It feels pretty good for just a minute, but once that edge goes off, it's pretty terrible. Okay? And that's why we don't do it. So I want you guys to notice if that's the reason why you're not doing it. One of the things that's fascinating to think about too, when we think about forgiveness, ladies, is I want to think about the difference between you forgiving yourself and forgiving other people. When I asked my class this today, some of them said it was easier to forgive themselves, and some of them said it was easier to forgive other people. So I want you to ask yourself, which are you? Do you find it easier to forgive others, or do you find it easier to forgive yourself? And why? One of the things that's fascinating about forgiving ourselves versus forgiving others is I think we can have a lot of thoughts about it, but like I said, a lot of things that prevent us from forgiving others has to do with us thinking that that means we condone the behavior or that we were overreacting or it's not a big deal. And in contrast, I think when we don't forgive ourselves, often it is because we think that if we forgive ourselves, then there will be nothing to stop us from repeating that behavior. Right? We somehow get this lie in our brains that if we forgive ourselves and we give ourselves that grace, then nothing will prevent us from doing that thing again. And it's a total lie. All that does is keep us feeling guilty and ashamed, and it keeps that negativity inside of us and keeps that with us longer, which is just actually more likely to perpetuate the behavior. If you guys have listened to the addiction cycle podcast that I did with Brock Bevel, you go listen to that, and then you can listen to the emotional addiction cycle one that I did. That's where I'm talking about. I talk about the shame cycle. Getting stuck in shame actually perpetuates the bad behavior. Forgiveness is what actually allows you to move past the bad behavior when you're talking about yourself, and it's actually what enables you to move forward in your relationship. So many people ask me all the time, how did you forgive Rob? How did you do it? Ladies, you have to be willing to let it go. And that may look like you being the bigger person, if that's how you think about it. Often we don't want to do that. We want him to grovel. We want him to kneel. We want him to apologize every single day of his life. That is never going to be the thing that moves you forward. That's also a lie. One of the things that we think in our brains is that forgiveness is that an apology is required in order to forgive. Ladies, let me tell you something. The other person is not required to be anywhere present or even acknowledge their wrongdoing in order for you to forgive and move forward. An apology is not required. When I forgave Rob, I didn't even tell him, and he was not in the room. Again, you can go back and listen to that bonus episode where I talk about what happened. I was sitting in my guest room and I was praying, and I forgave Rob in that moment, and he wasn't even there. And I didn't tell him, and I didn't have to. And yes, he has apologized at various points in our relationship, but I don't require that apology in order to forgive. Okay, here's the lie, ladies. A lot of you guys think, if only he would show some remorse, then I would forgive him. Let me tell you, ladies, him showing remorse is a circumstance, because he can come to you and tell you you're sorry. That's not going to make you feel forgiving toward him. In fact, you might just be even more bitter. Okay, you might think, well, yeah, he says that now, but it's too little too late. Right? There are so many thoughts that you can have about what he says, because what he says is a circumstance, and it does not create your forgiveness, because forgiveness is a process of letting go of your feelings, of feeling those feelings, of letting them go, walking through them so that you can put them behind you. It's being willing to feel all of those things that you don't want to feel, the ones that you resist right now, the ones that you bury under bitterness and resentment and anger. That's pain. If you guys want to know something about your emotions, I've talked about this before, is that if you're feeling anger, what you're really feeling is pain, and anger is just easier to feel, and so your brain only allows you to go that deep. But buried underneath anger is hurt, is pain. Buried underneath bitterness and resentment and anger is pain. You have to be willing to feel the pain that's under that bitterness and resentment and anger. And when you're willing to feel that, that's when you're able to process it, to feel it, and to move through it in order to put it behind you. Does that make sense? One of the things that a kid in my class brought up today is he said that he thought that the thing that led you through forgiveness was time. He said, I think time really helps. I think it requires time. And I nipped that right in the bud. And I said, nope, that's a lie. Time is a circumstance. Time is irrelevant. Otherwise, everyone over the age of 40 would be like amazing and have forgiven everyone and themselves for every negative thing ever done in their life. Right? It's not true. Time has nothing to do with your forgiveness. Time does not heal all wounds. Okay? Time has no factor. This is why it always confuses my clients when they just start with me and they say, I don't understand. I've been trying to work through this for so long. I should be farther than this. Right? Or he's been struggling with this for so long, or he's been clean for X number of years and I can't seem to move past it. What's wrong with me? Nothing. It just means you haven't learned how to process those emotions and move past them. And the amount of time that you have had this in your life is irrelevant. You guys see what I'm saying? Time has no factor in forgiveness. We know this too because Jesus Christ, when he was on the cross, forgave those who put him there. He talks about it in the scriptures. You can read it. He's talking to the soldiers are crucifying him, literally in the act, and he prays to God and he says, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. In that moment, while he was being murdered, he forgave his murderers. Okay? Time is not a factor in this. As you guys know, I've shared it before on the podcast, but one of my favorite scripture stories is the woman that's taken in adultery. Okay? The priests, the Pharisees, or the Sadducees bring this woman. She's caught in the act of adultery. Okay? So we know what that means. Caught in the act. They bring her before Jesus. They throw her on the floor and they say, Lord, okay, this woman was taken in adultery, and the law of Moses says that because of that, we should stone her. But what do you say? So they're trying to catch him in be tricky. And he starts drawing in the dirt on the floor and he says, all right, those of you who are without sin can go ahead and cast the first stone. And so then eventually they leave one by one because none of them are sinless. Okay. So eventually the woman looks up and he says, woman, where are those that accuse you? And she looks around. She's like, they're not here. There's no man here. And he says, neither do I condemn you. And then he tells her to get up and go and sin no more. He forgave her, ladies, in that moment. Time is irrelevant. Now, I know that he's Jesus and he's special, but he shows that it's possible. Time doesn't factor into forgiveness. Forgiveness comes internally, not from time. So I want you guys to think about this. What prevents you from forgiving? Not only yourself, but your husband. What's preventing you? Is it your pride? Is it your pain? And how is that affecting your relationship? Because I'll tell you, holding a grudge in between the person that you're married to isn't awesome, right? We get quiet. We pull away. We get very bitter. We start resenting them. We start not sharing things. We start second guessing. All of those things. And then we start to feel that space between us and our spouse just get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger day by day. But what if you were willing to let that go? What if you were willing to process the pain, to feel the hurt, and then to let it go? Not making it mean something about you or about him or your relationship. That's the biggest thing, that biggest lie in our brain is that if we forgive, it means something. It means we condone it. It means that it wasn't a big deal. It means that we were being too dramatic. It means that he's off the hook. None of that is true. Forgiveness is really a gift to yourself. It's a gift for you to let go of all of that negative emotion that right now you're just grasping and holding inside of yourself and keeping yourself stuck in a very negative place. Forgiveness is a gift to yourself because you let it go. Your life will automatically feel 400 times lighter and more amazing because not because you made it more positive, but because you released so much negativity. What does it look like? I really want you to think about this. What does it look like not to forgive? And then I want you to imagine what it would look like to forgive. What could it look like if you were able to move past this and put it behind you? What could your marriage look like? What could your relationship with your spouse look like? What could it look like when you're just alone in your head? What could your life look like? What could you look like? What would it feel like? Ladies, what would it feel like to let all of that go? How much relief would you feel? And can you imagine it? And why are you continuing to deny yourself that relief? How much more amazing would your life be if you were willing to let all of that go? You can totally do it. I've done it. I know it's possible. And I want that for y'all. But you have to want it for yourself. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person, ladies. It has everything to do with you. And it's a gift that you give yourself. You deserve it. All right, ladies, I love you so much. And I'll talk to you later. Take care. All right, ladies, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take it to the next level and we actually start applying and learning the how of moving forward. This podcast has taught you the what, and the coaching program is where you're going to learn the how. This is where you learn how to actually start moving forward, process all of that pain that you feel, and let it go once and for all. If you are ready to finally move forward and stop living a life that revolves around your husband's pornography addiction, then I want to invite you to come join me today. Just head to my website, joleneWynn.com, and sign up today. I can't wait to see you there.